So let's do something practical with our newfound knowledge of how to connect the database up with PHP. Now, in one of our previous examples earlier on in this series, we created a login form in order to allow people to log into a specific part of the site that they couldn't access otherwise. And the way we stored username and passwords was in an array, but we can use a database for that same information. So what we're going to do in this next step is actually take that information that was in the array and add it to our table, the people table that we've been working with, in order to allow our 3 users to log in. Our first step is going to be adding 2 additional columns to our people table for username and password. So let's go over to phpMyAdmin, and in the people table in our My database that we created earlier on in this series, what we want to do is click the Structure tab, and then in here, there's this simple form to add a number of fields at a particular point in the list of columns. So you see that there is a particular order to columns here. Most of the time, this order doesn't matter so much because when we query the database, we're going to be accessing the particular columns by name instead of by a particular order. However, when we're browsing data inside of phpMyAdmin, it can be easier to see the important data if it's nearer to the top because those will show more towards the left when we're browsing. For our username and password though, let's go ahead and simply leave it at its default to add the fields at the end of the table. Now we'll want to add 2, so I'm going to change this 1 to 2, and then I'll click the Go button. Now here we have our 2 columns, 1 column here and 1 column here. For the field, we'll type in username for the first one, and for the type, let's go ahead and select varchar. Now again, using varchar is the best option if we can when we're dealing with strings. We don't need a huge string here for a username. We'll go ahead and set it to 100 for now. And then for our second column, we'll call it password. We'll set it as a varchar as well, and we'll set the number to 100. Now there's a few other options here, but we'll ignore those for now and just click Save. Notice that there's this Go button here if we want to add additional fields, but we just want to add these 2 and move on. So I'll click Save, and you see we have a confirmation at the top that says People Table has been altered successfully, and it even gives us a query that allowed this to happen. So now, this is pretty powerful. We can extend existing tables to include additional data. You saw earlier how we could modify a field to change its type, and even though this is really awesome to be able to do, we want to be very careful when we're dealing with tables that we didn't create ourselves. So when we're working with Drupal, for example, where it installs a number of tables, we don't necessarily want to muck around with those tables at all. If we do, there could be some serious ramifications. If there's ever a situation where we do need to alter an existing table, we should do so within the context of a custom module that we built that includes an update script to change that table. Now, if none of that makes sense to you, don't worry about it for now. Just leave those tables as is, and you can come back to it later when you know a little bit more about what you're doing.